The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been one of the most successful sagas in movie history, within Phase 3's Infinity War and Endgame, which were quite the hits and are widely regarded as it being the peak of the MCU. Within these blockbusters, the Avengers, Earth's mightiest heroes, and the Guardians of the Galaxy had to ally up to defeat the Mad Titan Thanos, in order to stop him from wreaking havoc on the universe with the mighty Infinity Gauntlet. Speaking of planet dominators, the Viltrumites within the Invincible universe are savage in their own way, as they have subjugated and destroyed thousands of planets in their rule over the wide cosmos. In many universes, Mark Grayson, Invincible, decided to join his father Omni-Man and the other Viltrumites in the conquest of not only the Earth, but every other piece of rock with life and resources that could be exploited. But what if the Viltrumites, while hopping through dimensions to find new worlds to conquer, stumbled upon the Earth from their Marvel Cinematic Universe? Would Tony Stark, the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, Thor, the mighty god of thunder, Captain America, the leader and legendary super soldier lost in time, and the other members of the team be able to end their conquest once and for all? In this scenario, we will assume that the MCU is at its peak with all of the relevant characters still alive, so Tony Stark and the Scarlet Witch are still alive in this era. For the Viltrum Empire side of things, we will use a dimension where they are at their peak, so Mark and Nolan would be joined by General Krieg, Anissa, Conquest, who will likely appear in the next seasons, and Thrag, the Grand Regent, who is basically the Broly of the Viltrum Empire. And to spice things up, we could even throw some Ragnars in there. So, who would come out on top in this battle of insane proportions? I decided to go over feats, scaling statements, and the like to determine the winner. So without further ado, let's get right into this. First, we will cover relevant characters within the Avengers and stuff within Guardians of the Galaxy, and for the record, people like the Winter Soldier, Black Widow, the Falcon, or others on that range of power will likely have to sideline it or be considered dead pretty much immediately. If you know anything about how strong Viltrumites and these human characters are, you probably would expect that not very happy things would happen to them, much like how the agents in Nolan's house were utterly massacred. Case in point, we will start with Thor, who actually makes MCU scaling pretty straightforward. Even in the first film, he was casually able to shatter a large portion of Jotunheim, which is confirmed by VFX artists as being 100 times the size of the Grand Canyon, in an area that easily rivals medium-sized countries. It's worth mentioning that even while powerless, he was able to defeat multiple top echelon agents with ease, making him highly skilled. In Thor: The Dark World, he shatters the Ether, which is very impressive since even the Hadron Enforcer, wielded by Peter Quill, could not affect, much less shatter, the Power Stone when Ronan was imbued with it, with the weapon being confirmed in guidebooks as being able to shatter and destroy moons. Within Thor Ragnarok, he manages to put up a great fight against Hela, who considered the Casket of Winners as weak, which has enough potential energy to freeze the entire planet. She also considered the Tesseract as not bad in comparison, which is insane since such an artifact has enough energy to wipe out the planet as confirmed in the first Avengers film. Thor, by the time he fights Gorr, surpasses Hela as confirmed by the director, so he would scale to those levels of power. He'd also scale from Surtur, who managed to destroy Asgard, which is described as being a small planetary body. In my most favorite MCU film, Infinity War, Thor not only moves the moon-sized Nidavellir rings, but he also withstands the full concentrated power of a neutron star. If our sun alone creates multi-continental wiping levels of power every single second, it's insane to think about how much energy and gravitational pressure Thor is withstanding for several minutes, even if it compares to smaller magnitudes to that of the sun. We can scale Thor even higher if you think he scales to Captain Marvel, who in the Marvels film, was able to reignite a star's core, which is, well, at least small star level. This is somewhat consistent since we have seen a non-prime Odin create stars, as confirmed in the Dark World movie. Even inferior gods such as Khonshu can manipulate constellations as well. And yeah, this one is more so a spatial manipulation, so it doesn't really count for attack potency and durability, but the Odin stuff is pretty straightforward since creation feats should be at least comparable to destruction feats. Odin is at least planetary since he is confirmed in the Art of Thor book as having earth-shattering power, which is consistent since he would scale comparably if not greater than that of the Tesseract. If you think that Thor scales to his father or above, then he would scale from these levels of power. Not to mention, you could argue he got a 10 times multiplier between Thor 1 and Thor Ragnarok due to the amount of hits it took him to break a part of the Rainbow Bridge. So, saying that Thor is in the planetary to multiplanetary ranges is pretty fair, but he could arguably be in the stellar levels. As for speed, Thor is at least massively hypersonic, being that he can react to Iron Man, who moves at hypersonic speeds even in vastly inferior armors. But he's likely relativistic to being several times faster than light in combat and reaction times, because he has reacted to lasers multiple times, like when he fought the Destroyer, which is confirmed to be a laser by VFX staff, or like at the start of Thor: Love and Thunder. He would also scale somewhat to Thanos, who could react to Iron Man's energy beams several times, which are confirmed to focus light energy, making it light speed, or at least inferring it is relativistic. Even a weakened Thanos was able to react to Captain Marvel's photon blast, which are confirmed by VFX staff as being bolts of light, which would make the feat relativistic to light speeds. This is consistent since Thor in a What If episode was also able to react to Captain Marvel's light-based attacks. He's also reacted to Hela's daggers, which could traverse faster than the Bifrost was transporting Thor and Loki to Asgard, which is several galaxies away from the Earth. People usually say this doesn't mean anything because it'd be like saying that just because you can throw something in a fast-moving vehicle doesn't mean the object itself isn't going as fast. But the Bifrost doesn't work the same way, with it being stated as being a tractor beam. If Hela can react to and throw a dagger that fast, it means she must be throwing it faster than the pull of the Bifrost, at least. And yeah, there's weird downplay you can do with Quicksilver being able to blitz Thor, but the same Quicksilver saw lasers and Mjolnir in slow motion, with the mighty artifact being fast enough that it allowed Jane Foster to search the entire Earth twice. Pietro also failed to react to bullets twice, so his speeds are certainly not the most consistent. If anything, him being able to blitz Thor, who can react to lasers and seeing them in slow-mo, would mean he's arguably relativistic to FTL at max anyways. Since we were talking about Captain Marvel earlier, by the time of Endgame, she is likely superior to Thor, being that Thanos was forced to use the Power Stone to overpower her, which is confirmed by Anthony Russo. As whether Thor is comparable to her, if not surpasses her by the time of Thor 4, is up to interpretation, but it doesn't really matter ultimately because they are fighting together. She's solidly star levels in attack potency and durability, going by the Marvels, and is relativistic to being several times faster than light in combat speed, going by even inferior characters like Aldrich Killian, being able to react to Iron Man's beams multiple times, which are stated to channel light energy. But she definitely reaches massively faster than light speeds through travel, like when she flew to save Tony Stark from 1,000 light years away within a day. Captain America is a great character and an impressive fighter, but without Mjolnir, he is not going to match up well against the Viltrumites. So in this scenario, we will grant him the power-up, which should at least make him comparable to Thor in speed and power, due to his performance against Thanos, which means that he would have raw power above the planet-freezing Casket of Wonders, which the hammer is outright stated by Odin to be superior to. If the hammer was able to make Jane Foster, who is not a soldier, comparable to post-awakening Thor, then it's fair to say that Captain America should scale comparably to Thor, even by the time of Thor 4, theoretically speaking. Tony Stark is the backbone of the Avengers, and for good reason, since he was able to come in clutch numerous times. He has multitudes of impressive armors, but the most relevant ones in this scenario are Mark 50 from Infinity War and Mark 85 from Endgame, which are made from nanotechnology. For speed, at his peak, he is likely relativistic to faster than light speeds, being that he was able to briefly contend with Thanos for a decent amount of time, and as I mentioned earlier, Thanos is fast enough to react to lasers and photon blast. For power and durability, he is arguably continental to planetary levels, being that he was able to endure a moon being thrown at him, and blast from the Power Stone, which even when used by Ronan, who is inferior to Thanos, would have been able to destroy a planet with it. The Power Stone would also scale above the Casket of Wonders, which already has continental to multicontinental ranges of energy, and should at least be comparable to the Tesseract, which can also wipe out planets. Also, drawing blood from Thanos already gives Iron Man potential Moon Plus levels of attack potency, since Ronan, who while empowered by the Power Stone, was largely unscathed by the Hadron Enforcer, which can destroy moons. Point is, Iron Man certainly packs a punch and can certainly take a hit, since even a wallop from Mjolnir, launched by a Thor at his strongest levels at the time, wasn't able to kill him. Although, without his armor, he is just as durable as any other human. The Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, is extremely powerful, even more so than Captain Marvel, even prior to her getting a hold of the Dark Hold, as confirmed by Kevin Feige. This is very consistent since she was able to destroy the Mind Stone and hold back Thanos for a decent amount of time in Infinity War, and later whooped on him so hard that he was forced to call a bombardment on his own forces to keep her off of him in Endgame. Speaking of destroying the Mind Stone, such a legendary artifact is strong enough to casually kill beings as strong as Thanos, as showcased in What If. So, Wanda certainly scales to those levels of power if she can overpower its shell. And yes, What If content is canon to the multiverse as confirmed by lead writer A.C. Bradley. Assuming she was on the good guy's side during her being under the Dark Hold, she is definitely the ace in the hole in the Avengers arsenal due to her reality warping powers, powerful energy blasts, and wider range of spells. She can turn people into dust, can manipulate people's biological makeup like she did to Black Bolt and Mr. Fantastic, and can quickly regenerate her body even after it was disfigured by the mirror dimension. Since she can keep up with and overpower Thanos, she would have the aforementioned relativistic to several times faster than light combat speeds and reaction times. This is very consistent since during Multiverse of Madness, she reacted to Captain Marvel's Photon Blast even while using the other Wanda's body. It's even possible that she's even faster than that in her own body, since Elizabeth Olsen, the actress, said that the Scarlet Witch was in a less oiled version of herself in the encounter. Doctor Strange is a tricky mofo to deal with due to his immense levels of experience and study of the mystic arts. He's able to bind opponents, make multiple copies of himself, can reflect Power Stone amped attacks, can knock out someone's soul from their bodies, and can even summon beasts and serpents to fight for him, and so much more. Again, due to him being able to keep up with Thanos, he should have comparable speeds to the others, although he's definitely not as agile or as durable as Thor, Wanda, or Captain Marvel. The raging monster Hulk, Bruce Banner, is also a formidable contender due to being able to keep up with pre-awakening Thor several times, and due to him being able to beat Ultron, who could give Thor a hard time, and damage Surtur, who could destroy Asgard. If Hulk is able to somewhat keep up with pre-awakening Thor, who has reacted to lasers, then he should have comparable combat speeds at his peaks. However, I don't think that he matches Thor at his peak or Captain Marvel at all in either speed or power. Generally, I think it's pretty clear that the big contenders on the Avengers team have continental to star levels of power, and of course with the Guardians of the Galaxy's technology, they for sure have moon level attack potency on their side in the struggle. As for Viltrumites, their scaling is pretty straightforward for most of them. They are at least multi-continental to planetary, being that Thetis, Omni-Man, and Mark, alongside a shot from the Space Racer, were able to destroy the planet Viltrum, which has a gravity 1.25 times that of the Earth. They are likely more durable than destroying a solar disk, which is big enough to block a sunlight shine so potently that the planet the super predators the Ragnar were on froze over. Conquest should also scale above most Viltrumites, likely Thula, Vidor, and Lucan, since he does eventually fight a post-Invincible War Mark, who got way stronger since his first bout with the Viltrumites. Anissa should also scale comparatively to the other Viltrumites strength-wise, but is likely far faster than all of them, since she's noted as being even faster than Omni-Man. Omni-Man should be well above these Viltrumites due to him being well revered and due to Thrag giving him respect in their final battle, despite being disappointed in their first two bouts. Thrag and Mark at their peak should be at least several times stronger than the standard Viltrumite, since we have seen Thrag match and eventually barely defeat Battle Beast, who could fight several Viltrumites at the same time, and demanded to fight more despite not being able to fight with full maneuverability since he cannot fly. Both of these grand fighters should also scale to Alan the Unopen, who can one-shot Viltrumites with ease, and who can also fight multiple of them. So saying their planet to planet plus levels is not unreasonable. In terms of speed, they are at least massively hypersonic due to very early Mark being able to reach the land of the penguins, Antarctica, from the United States in under a minute. Although it's risky for them to use their max speeds in the atmosphere of a planet, they can reach relativistic and massively faster than light speeds in combat speed and reaction times, and this is for a number of reasons. Even early Mark, prior to fighting Omni-Man, was able to reach relativistic speeds in his battle with Alan. We have seen Conquest and other Viltrumites intercept and ram into a coalition of planets' ship, which can travel multi-galactic distances within a few days. And we have seen Thrag react to Space Racer's Infinity Ray Blast, which are comparable if not faster than most Viltrumites, due to it blitzing them numerous times. So if Mark could match Conquest and contend with Thrag, he should also have comparable combat speeds. Not to mention that he was skill from Alan, who is confirmed in the guidebooks as having comparable reflexes to his flight speeds attained. Which is crazy because he can travel across galaxies and has reacted to Viltrumite warships. Although you can be skeptical of these characters reaching faster than light speeds within the atmosphere of the Earth, if they really wanted to, they can accelerate at massively faster than light speeds and raise entire civilizations. So now that we have gone over the stats for both sides of the conflict, who do I think would beat the other? I'd say that it depends on how desperate the Viltrum Empire is and how highly we scale the heroes. If the Viltrumites are fighting within the Earth with the intention of taking over and not destroying it, they have the potential to get blitzed or matched by the Avengers like Thor, Scarlet Witch, and Captain Marvel. A serious Thor would chop through the Viltrumites like butter with his Stormbreaker, and would shock if not kill an entire lot of them with his mighty lightning strikes. Even as powerful as Thrag and Mark are, they would get no diffed by Thor's hits. Captain Marvel would blast through them with her Photon Blast and scoff off their attacks. Captain America would be able to do some nasty combos on them with the hammer and his iconic shield in tandem, and of course, scorch the hell out of them with the Mjolnir Thunder Strikes. However, if he is separated from the hammer for a considerable amount of time, he would lose the power up eventually, and at that point, he would be easy pickings for a Viltrumite. Scarlet Witch would be extremely difficult to deal with due to her summoning, mirror dimension shenanigans, and biological manipulation, which the Viltrumites have no resistance to. She certainly has more than enough raw power to kill a Viltrumite at this point if she scales above Captain Marvel by the time of endgame. I can definitely see her take the Viltrumites apart and play with their bodies, or blast them away with her Scarlet Energy Blasts. Doctor Strange would be very annoying to deal with, but if a Viltrumite manages to blitz and heavily wound him, he's done for. Doctor Strange is definitely more durable than most humans in the verse, but he's no Thor, Spider-Man, or Captain Marvel. I can totally see the Master of the Mystic Arts losing a limb or losing an entire section of his body, and seeing it all go downhill from there for him. Although he would make things very difficult for the Viltrumites before he fades away. If Tony Stark has armors that allow him to contend with Thanos and can take hits from blows meant for the Titan, then he can certainly make armors that can contend with Viltrumites and eventually hurt them. However, I think that due to their agility and raw durability and power, they should be able to overtake Tony and rip him apart eventually. Maybe if Tony uses those cutting-edge lasers he used in Iron Man 2 amplified by Thor's power, he could do some serious damage to them and perhaps even kill them. Hulk would suffer a horrible fate due to lacking speed feats on the levels that allow Carol and Thor to keep up with at those higher echelons. All of the Viltrumites are experts in hand-to-hand combat, and except for Mark, have thousands of years of experience. And much like how Thanos outscaled Hulk, a Viltrumite would do the same and slice him open. Spider-Man, despite being very agile and having spider sense, would eventually get blitzed by a Viltrumite, who would turn him into paste quite easily. Yes, Spider-Man is strong, but is he strong enough to survive the power of entire continents cracking on him? I don't think so. Also, if they really felt like it, the Viltrumites could just take one of them to the vacuum of space and get rid of them that way. Regardless, I think that Thor, Scarlet Witch, and Captain Marvel at their peak interpretations could defeat all of the Viltrumites and their warships. The other heroes, albeit losing their lives, would take several of the planetary conquerors with them and force the others to retreat. In effect, the Avengers would be victorious, albeit in a bittersweet way. If the Viltrumites are set on destroying everything, all it would take is a few of them to fly through the planet and shatter it violently. Even as fast as Carol and Thor are, they would get blitzed by the max speeds that we have seen from the Viltrumites. But they should be durable enough to take multitudes of their hits, and you could even argue that they would be so tanky that the Viltrumites who dare to ram into them would get splattered. If we said that Carol, Thor, and Wanda were star levels, they would be able to easily kill the Viltrumites, although it would be challenging for them to hit them. It's also hard to say if Scarlet Witch needs oxygen to survive, so if the planet is destroyed, it's possible that the Avengers would lose yet another comrade. But I mean, if she's able to reform her body from the weird shenanigans from the mirror dimension, I think that oxygen is the least of her worries. It's hard to say exactly how much stamina Carol and Thor have, but Viltrumites could arguably have even greater levels due to Omni-Man being able to fight a dragon for 10 hours, and Thrag being able to fight battle beasts for several days, even while heavily injured. Speaking of, Viltrumites have much better endurance than Captain Marvel and Thor due to the amount of injuries they have received while they kept fighting. Which of course is mostly due to it being a Disney movie, obviously. But the fact stands. Theoretically speaking, if Captain Marvel has enough energy to reignite a star, she should have a much larger energy pool than Viltrumites and by effect would have greater stamina, as with Thor and Wanda if they scale in any way to her. One thing is for sure, many Viltrumites are going to terminate themselves by trying to accelerate towards Thor and Captain Marvel at their max power. In the end though, the remaining heroes would lose inevitably. Even if they were able to kill the rest of the Viltrumites, they would be greatly injured and worn out eventually. And that's not to mention that the planet Earth had already been long destroyed. Although the Viltrumites lost the battle, they won the war. Now, if we were to use more conservative power scales for the heroes and said that they were continental to planetary levels, then the Viltrum Empire would definitely win. Just an average Viltrumite would already be a high tier threat in the verse, let alone Conquest, Mark, the Ragnars, Omni-Man, or Thrag. They would also surely blitz the heroes and destroy everything in sight. In effect, the mustached conquerors would come out on top, despite not being able to assimilate the planet into their ranks as they had intended. But yeah, that's how I think things would go down if the MCU and the Viltrumites had to face off for the fate of the Earth. Thanks so much for watching, I hope that you enjoyed, and peace out.